I'm grateful to Nature Club and with association with Media Cell for allowing such a wonderful event to take place. So today on occasion of Earth Day, we have come together to talk about nature and more specifically soil. Soil is the ground on which all life on land grows from. The crops, the forests, the animals, everything we know on this land to be living is grounded in soil. Even us, though we see ourselves moving relative to soil and like to distance ourselves from it by wearing shoes, creating pavements, floors, but we arise from it just as much as trees do. Our food comes from soil, our life comes from soil. We call it dust, dirt, but it is not dirt. The thing is, the nature of soil determines the nature of our life. An unhealthy soil will give rise to unhealthy human beings. After all, the word nature and our nature is similar for a reason. With that, I'd like to call upon Dr. Yogesh to give us a short introduction on Nature Club.
Good afternoon, all of you. First of all, thanks to Professor Vikas Sharma for coming. And there is a visit by Prime Minister on 24th to Jammu city, and he is very busy in that particular activities. There are so many activities running around, and from that he finds some time for us. Thank you very much for that. Related to IIT Jammu, actually, this related to Earth Day. I will say that in order to save Earth, we have to save nature as well. And plant plays the major role in saving Earth in a many aspects. I think that particular thing, Professor Vikas will tell you in detail. But what activity we are doing at IIT Jammu for this particular thing is that our our institute is new and we are developing. So there are so many construction activities going on our land, and this land belongs to forest. Basically, it is a forest land, and there are so many trees that are there already on this land. But for construction, we have to sacrifice some of them, and in order to fill that particular gap, we have initiated a nature club over here. So the nature club basically takes care of plantation programs. We have, in collaboration with the Jammu and Kashmir State Forest Department, we are working on a development of arboriculture activities in IIT Jammu, and we are around 40,000 plants that are there on the in IIT Jammu, and we are developing them, nourishing them in our nurseries. For that, we have developed that infrastructure as well. And we, in each year, we are planning to have plant around 10,000 plants so that we can make up and we can make IIT much greener than it was before. Okay, so that is one task that Nature Club is focused on. The second thing is in order to generate awareness about nature among students, we are also trying to carry out activities related to trekking, sightseeing, nature visit kind of activities, so that students will love to visit the places and feel the beauty of nature, so that they will have affection towards the nature. So that is one more activity. Then we are also working on soil stabilization issues, and for that we are trying to develop some techniques so that we can stabilize the slopes that are generated because of construction activities, as well as naturally that are there, and that particular slopes we are trying to stabilize by doing plantation, by carrying out some green activities by development of some shrubs and from some grass that we are trying to also some technical aspect that we are trying to develop for the soil stabilization activity. That also comes in this nature club. Then we are also working on biodiversity in collaboration with the biodiversity department, J&K Forest Department. We are working on photography of different birds and animals that are there in our campus or around the campus, and we are trying to, that means thanks to biodiversity department, that they are ready. If we can click some new species, they are ready to add that particular thing in their dictionary, state government dictionary. So all these activities we have initiated right now, but there are so many things to do in this, and student body is there, and that is basically, I also want to thank that particular all the group members to arrange this particular program. Because of them, we are initiating this program. So now I will not take much more time.
I would like to thank Mr. Yogesh for such a informative speech. And moving on, we have I'd like to call upon Dr. Vijay, Mr. Vijay, for to give us a speech on soil and safe soil movement.
Thank you, Nature Club, for providing this opportunity. So we are talking about climate change, carbon emission, and global warming, and so many aspects. But what we really not addressing is the soil. Soil is the habitat upon which zillions of life thrives. Every responsible scientist in the world and UN agencies are clearly stating that we have only 80 to 100 harvests left. It's approximately 40 to 50 years of agriculture soil is left on the planet. So by 2045, we'll be producing 40% less food than what we are producing right now, and population will be around 9.3 billion people. So the food shortages that could manifest in next 25 years, the consequences that unimaginable, that civil wars may unfold. And so what we really facing right now is soil extinction. So what is happening to our soil? Where is soil going away? So if we add organic contents to soil, sand, it turns into soil in the very basic level. And if we remove all the organic contents, then soil can turn into sand. So in normal agriculture soil, the minimum organic content should be between 3 to 6%. The most minimum is 3% at least, to keep the soil as a living entity. So agriculture soils across the world, the depletion is so heavy. In the most countries, 50% of the agriculture soil is already degraded. So the nutrition levels have dropped significantly. In beginning of 20th century, if you eat an orange, the nutrients that you get from an orange, if you want the same level of nutrients, you have to eat 8 oranges. That is what we have done to our food. So soil is the biggest ecosystem on the planet, and so few people know about it. So few people know anything about it. One teaspoon of healthy soil contains more microbes than people on the planet. So that much biodiversity we have, and that is the basis that 12 to 15 inches of the topsoil is the basis of 87% of the life, 80% life on the planet. So we have begun to recognize that what we call our soil is a living organism. So open soils ripped apart by plowing open to sunlight is the basis of destruction of microbial lives. So the focus should be on agriculture. The focus should be seeing that the land under shed as much as possible. Some kind of shed, grasses, bushes, herbs, any kind of shed. So the conscious planet is launching Save Soil movement to bring about a policy changes to regenerate soil. As a part of this, Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev is a founder of Isha Foundation. At the age of 65, he is writing 30,000 kilometers journey across 24 nations to activate support from citizenry to ensure the government's long-term investments will be appreciated. So in a democratic country, if too many people, speaks about something, the government takes steps towards it. Because democracy is not a spectator's game. We need to participate. So it is extremely important that soil regeneration is enshrined in the policy of every government on the planet. We must change the narrative on the planet. The soil is a wealth, a legacy that we have received from the previous generation, and we have to pass it on to the future generation. So we are in a cusp of time. If we do the right things now, in the next 15 to 25 years, we can significantly turn the situation around and regenerate the soil. But if we do not act right now, if we wait for another 40 years, then it may take 150 to 200 years. That much biodiversity would have been lost. So from 21st March to like next 100 days, the whole world, we need to speak about soil. So each one of us should reach as many as we can. And many global leaders and influencers are already participating in this movement. So please be part of this. In our lifetime, if we do not do what we cannot do, it's not a problem. But if we do not do what we can do, then we are really a tragedy. So saving environment is not an obligation. Our environment is our life. So please be part of it and let us make it happen. Namaskaram.
Thank you, sir, for such a wonderful speech. As students of science, that too from one of the premier institutes of India, have a responsibility towards our families, villages, cities, and nation, and unborn generations to spread, at least if we do not work or research towards the topic, to at least spread awareness regarding the topic. And with that, I'd like to call upon Shivani ma'am to recite us a poem on her day.
Good evening all, and a very happy Earth Day. This day is celebrated to create awareness about different environmental issues like pollution, global warming, soil degradation, etc. So to express the pain of our mother nature that we caused by the destruction that we do to her, Shivani Chauhan is going to recite a poem. So here it goes. रोती बिलखती में सांसें मेरी उखड़ रही, रोती बिलखती में सांसें मेरी उखड़ रही, ऑक्सीजन मास्क लगा शुद्ध वायु को तरस रही, जलवायु परिवर्तन हो रहा तपिश मुझ में बढ़ रही, जलवायु परिवर्तन हो रहा तपिश मुझ में बढ़ रही, शुष्क हो रहे नदी तालाब, नित्य चुनौतियां उत्पन्न हो रही, अनियंत्रित औद्योगिकरण से अवशोषक मेरे तड़प रहे, तड़पन से उनकी पल पल मेरे आंसू टपक रहे, ग्लेशियर मेरे मुझ में ही पिघल विलुप्त हो रहे, कमोबेश तत्व सारे मेरे दूषित और दुर्लभ हो रहे, हरी भरी थी मैं मरुस्थल में मृत तृष्णा से ललचा रही, हष्ट पुष्ट थी मैं व्याधियों से स्वयं को घिरा पा रही, ग्लोबल वार्मिंग के तांडव से तापमान में मेरी वृद्धि हो रही, बढ़ते तापमान से सहज प्रजातियां अनेकों विलुप्त हो रही, उत्सर्जित गैसों से सौर किरणों के मार्ग अवरोधित हो रहे, उत्सर्जित गैसों से सौर किरणों के मार्ग अवरोधित हो रहे, नित संकट के घिर बदरा सर्द गर्म के उपक्रम बदल रहे, वस्त्र रूपी ओजोन परत छिद्रों से लहूलुहान हो रही, वस्त्र रूपी ओजोन परत छिद्रों से लहूलुहान हो रही, पराबैंगनी विकिरणों के निस्पंदन में बाधा उत्पन्न हो रही, कलकल प्रवाहित करती शांत सौम्य, कलकल प्रवाहित करती शांत सौम्य मौन आक्रोश दिखा रही, सूखी बंजर धरा में अस्तित्व बचाने को अब गुहार लगा रही। थैंक यू।
It is said rightly that a poem begins in delight and ends in wisdom by Robert Frost. And with that, I would like to invite Yash sir, Pratna ma'am, and Vinod to give us a series of performances.
हेलो, नमस्कार सभी को। क्षिति जल पावक गगन समीरा, पंच रचित अति अधम शरीरा। हमारा पूरा शरीर और पूरी की पूरी दुनिया 5 तत्वों से ही बनी है, पृथ्वी, जल, अग्नि, वायु और आकाश। इन सभी में से सबसे स्टेबल एलिमेंट होता है उसको हम जो अर्थ होता है। और जब भी हम खाना खाते हैं तो इस पृथ्वी का एक छोटा सा टुकड़ा खुद को जिंदा रखने के लिए अंदर ले रहे होते हैं। हम यहाँ पर जहाँ से भी आए हैं, जिस भी स्टेट से या शायद इंडिया के बाहर से भी आए हो, तो हम जब मिट्टी के साथ खेलते हैं तो हमारी माँ बोलती है कि हाथ गंदे हो गए या कपड़े गंदे हो गए। ये सामने जो पौधा रखा है, अगर इसकी माँ इसको ये बोले कि इनकी जड़ें गंदी हो रही है, तो ना तो कोई पौधा उगेगा, ना कोई फ्रूट उगेगा, और हम तो बिल्कुल ही नहीं होंगे। तो सॉइल कोई गंदगी नहीं, वो हमारी सोर्स ऑफ लाइफ ही है। थैंक यू।
सभी अतिथिगणों को मेरा सादर। भारतीय दर्शन यह मानता है कि इस देह की रचना पंचभूतों से हुई है। पृथ्वी, जल, अग्नि, वायु और आकाश। समुद्र मंथन में वृक्षों के प्रतिनिधि के रूप में कल्प वृक्ष का निकलना, फिर उसका देवताओं द्वारा संरक्षण में लेना। इसी तरह से कामधेनु और ऐरावत हाथी का संरक्षण इसके उदाहरण हैं। कृष्ण की गोवर्धन की पूजा की शुरुआत का लौकिक पक्ष यह है कि जनमानस मिट्टी, पर्वत, वृक्ष और वनस्पति का आदर करना सीखे।
आप बताना अगर आवाज़ आ रही है पीछे तक, पीछे वाले बताना।
जोर से आ रही है।
आ रही है।
अभी मैं एक डॉक्टर रमेश्वर प्रसाद मिश्रा द्वारा रचित एक गीत पेश करने वाली हूँ। ये गीत संस्कृत भाषा में लिखी गई है। इसका भावार्थ ये है, पर्यावरण का प्रदूषण मुक्त करने का शुभ संकल्प व्यक्त करते हुए कवि ये कहते हैं कि शरीर, मन और पर्यावरण को सुपावन करो। जब कल्याण के लिए अपने आचरण का सुधार करो। अपशब्द मत बोलो, अशुद्ध मत बोलो, वाणी को मधुर रखो। मधुर वाणी शांति प्रदान करती है। आपस में भेदभाव और लड़ाई झगड़ा मत करो। मित्रता और शांति बनाए रखो। खूब पेड़ लगाओ। पानी में गंदगी मत फैलाओ। जल ही जीवन है, उसे स्वच्छ रखो। निर्मलता ही धरती का आभूषण है, इसलिए पर्यावरण को पवित्र रखो। अब मैं आपके सामने गीत पेश करूंगी। कुरु सुपावनं पर्यावरणं, कुरु सुपावनं पर्यावरणं, कल्याणाय च शुभमाचरणं, कल्याणाय च शुभमाचरणं, कुरु सुपावनं पर्यावरणं, कुरु सुपावनं पर्यावरणं, सरसं देव भारती घालया, अतशक्तान् सदैव हिमालया, शान्ति पोषया सुमधुरवाण्या, मधुरवाणी सर्वत्र सुमत्या, श्रेयस्करं पवित्राचरणं, कुरु सुपावनं पर्यावरणम्। भव भव सम्यक् वृक्ष समूहं, त्यज त्यज दोषं गन्धं व्यूहम्। भव भव सम्यक् वृक्ष समूहं, त्यज त्यज दोषं गन्धं व्यूहम्। जलमध्ये नत्वलं विसर्जय, जलं जीवनं संयनिरक्षया, शुद्धं वातावरणं शरणं, कुरु सुपावनं पर्यावरणं, कल्याणाय च शुभमाचरणं, कुरु सुपावनं पर्यावरणं, कुरु सुपावनं पर्यावरणं। शुक्रिया।
After the wonderful trio of Yash sir, Pratna ma'am and Vinod, I'd like to call upon, introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Vikas Sharma from Sher-E-Kashmir Agricultural University. Please welcome him with a round of applause.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Generally, the question and answer session is kept for the end, and that too by the audience. But I'll like to start with a question for those two guys. Where did you get the T-shirt?
सर एक्चुअली आई रिसेंटली गॉन फॉर कंपटीशन, तो वहाँ पर ईशा फाउंडेशन के वॉलंटियर्स आए थे, सेफ सॉइल का सेमिनार है, हमने स्टूडेंट्स को दिया।
So I like to have one. I'll have to go on a website. Okay. Thank you, Nature Club, Mr. Yogesh ji, Sandhya ji, for inviting me to this session here at IIT Jammu. It's my first visit to this place. Basically, I'm from Jammu, and I'm very pleased that we have got such a brilliant institution in our city. And Jammu is growing very fast. As you know, we have got an IIM, AIMS is coming up, Central Agriculture Center University, 2 other universities. So it's becoming an educational hub, and it's good to have collaboration with other institutes. And what better way to start with a lecture on the soils. We have come a full circle, like starting from, if we go through our ancient texts, Vedas, we see that there's a lot of description about soils, plants, life on earth itself as a whole. And then over a period of time, the population grew. We forgot about the soil. And then in the 1990s again, we started talking about the soil. A few people like us, academicians, but not the general public. But now, 30 years later, there is much more awareness about soils. Many more people are coming into. And I wanted to start with a slide, but now it's at the end. I'll tell you why we don't know much about soils, or the general public is not aware about the soils when we get to the end. So we started in the 90s talking about soil health and quality. Before that, there were other reasons also, because we didn't have so much population. There was not so much pressure on the soils. So we have done shifting cultivation also, right? Moving from one place to another, burning down the trees, then going. But that was a long time ago, and the population was very small. We could afford that. But that is not the case. Now we are talking about the stagnant agriculture. And Indian population is growing very fast. He was talking about that we will be having less land in the future. Yes, definitely we'll be having very less land for agriculture, but we'll be needing that much extra food grains to feed our population. So the target for 2050 is 333 million tons of grains. That's much more than what we are doing right now in the 200s range. And soil or the land will be less by around that much cover. So that's how we have to start thinking about it. How do we do that? How do we go in the next slide? So he was talking about the 5 elements. I've got 3 here. It takes us time to understand things because we are humans. We ignore things that are easily available to us. Okay, so we started with the water. You all know that all the civilizations in the world were based on water earlier because that was the commodity that we needed. But we have forgotten the role of the soil because the water was not only needed for drinking but also for agriculture also. And the agriculture where we have more agriculture, it's not like we're talking about soils that we are doing agriculture and we are losing the quality. In fact, wherever we have good quality agriculture, the quality of soil is better there. But it's the problem is the conventional systems or the type of agriculture that we have adopted over time. So the other thing is, we're talking about water, we need water for drinking, so we thought water. Then comes the air. Until 1780s, we were not thinking much about air. And then came the pollution, and then came New Delhi, okay, very high air quality index, and now we know how much important air is for us. We have air purifiers in our rooms in Delhi. It's become a norm, may not be in Jammu yet, not in this area, but we know now. And then third one is the soil, because when we are not losing something or when we are not, the fear of losing is what makes us realize that we need to protect it. We protected water, now we are thinking about air, and we're doing a lot of work on air also. And then comes the soil. So in the near future, and that's very important that we have some spiritual goals also. I'll come to that later, because that is very, very important. Academicians can do only a very little bit in telling people what they are going to do about their daily lives. We cannot teach them. So soil is here. So this is the civilization. So it was based upon around water, okay. But soil was also a very important part of this civilization. And then I was talking about earlier that we used to have shifting cultivation. So what was happening is when the population was very small, we had a lot of area under the forest. So this is still practiced in northeastern region of India, and it's very difficult to stop that also. In many other countries also it's there, but in the northeastern region it's still practiced. There are a lot of efforts being done by the government to bring people to avoid this kind of agriculture. So it's like also called a slash and burn agriculture. So a group of tribals will go to a particular location, clear the area, go for cultivation. Now, why they do it is that we knew about the importance of soil way back, because we need a fertile soil for agriculture, and the people, they were knowing about it, and that's why they followed it. So what was happening that there was enough time for the forest to regenerate. So when they moved on to the next place, there was enough land for but now that is not the case. So we are in the same place, we are tilling the same land, and the quality of the land is degrading over time. And I'll tell you about the tale of two regions in the same district where we are right now in Jammu district. You can count your IIT in one part and our Squash Jammu in the other part, in the irrigated zone. So apart from the slide that I was studying, so if you see that the quality of life in these two regions. So the hilly, the quality of life in these two regions. One is the Shivaliks, if you just take the Jammu district. The other is the irrigated plains where we are having basmati cultivation and all. So the quality of soils is very different in both the regions. There are fertile soils in the irrigated zone, but there are very unfertile, also very poor quality soils in the Shivalik zone, in the area where you are located. So if you can see the average income of the people from the soils in this area is far lower than the quality of life or the quality of income that the people are having. So from that very instance, you can make out the you can say the importance of the soil in the people's lives. So he was talking about 3 to 6% organic carbon in the soil. That is way too much for with the Indian context. This is less than 0.5 in the agricultural lands in this area. It will be around 0.7 to 0.8 in the irrigated areas, which I'm calling as fertile. Very good. To go beyond 1%, we need to have forest cover like this. So in the forest, we are having 1+% in the subtropical forest. And when we talk about 3 to 6% organic carbon, we are actually talking about temperate regions. So that type of organic carbon, if we can actually do it in our soils, today when we were preparing a report for the Prime Minister's visit, and we just said that we are going to increase 0.08% carbon in the soils in the coming 3 years. And we were very hesitant to even put that word because it was 0.42 and we want to take it to 0.5%. And that was giving us around 500 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent for the entire village of 280 hectares. Okay. So even increasing 0.08% was a big task, even though we have given ourselves 3 years. Because in a country like us, where the organic matter rates decomposition is very, very fast, to check or to increase the organic carbon to such a level is very, very difficult. So that is the difference between the two regions based just upon the soil. There will be other regions like.
Why is it difficult?
First thing that we are cultivating in a way that makes it very difficult for the farmers to increase the carbon in the soil. Tillage is one of the reasons, because we are going for tillage that emits carbon dioxide, carbon in the form of carbon dioxide. Then there are certain practices. We are following paddy cultivation in the irrigated zone. So there are nitrous oxide emissions, methane emissions from that. And then another important thing is that the rate of decomposition of organic matter is very fast in the subtropical conditions because of the higher temperatures, moist conditions, and that's why we are not able to store the organic matter in the soil. Although we are working on a number of technologies that will help us store. You might have heard about biochar, and then organic farming we have been talking about. Then there are residue management. We are burning so much residue. We've been knowing that in Haryana and Punjab, when you in October time, it's almost everything is dark even in the daytime because there's so much residue burning. The reason why we cannot persuade the farmers to not to burn, because it's very difficult to persuade the farmers or to make them adapt to different technologies, because economics is very, very important for the farmers, and most of our farmers are resourceful. For example, our target audience as a agriculture university are the people whom we have to give technologies for free. the commercialization of the technology is not there. So they will definitely adopt whatever is cheaper to them and whatever gives them immediate returns. So I'll be coming to another aspect also, but since we have started talking about this, so let's talk about this region once again. So around 18 years back, when I put my first experiment on the farmers field, we selected like 5 villages. Out of the 5, we could continue only in 3, and we had hoped that it'll be not more than 3. So we just wanted 3, but we started in 5 to eliminate where we couldn't do much. So the thing was, there was land, there was the families, but there was no one to work on the land. In fact, we said we'll give you everything, but you just need to maintain the crop. But there was nobody to maintain the crop. The reason being, because the returns from this land are very, very little. And they don't want to spend their time and money on that land. So what he was doing, he was, one of the guys was driving a matador, what we call, the local bus, and the other one was working in a factory. So that is a assured return to him every evening. That is not from agriculture, especially in this rain-fed area where the soil is poor, where there is water scarcity, and almost every 3 to 4 days there is a drought and there is no wheat production in the winter season. Maize still we can manage because of the monsoon. So these are some of the reasons why people are not going for technologies that we give them, because they don't have enough time to spare for that. And then there are other opportunities coming up. If you can drive a bus and get back 500, 600 rupees, who will waste their time on the land, and he doesn't even know whether he's going to get some rains out of it. So that land is like just a asset that he has kept, maybe to build a house in the future, or maybe to sell it off if he wants to. Nobody sells the land, of course. I also will not sell. No, to overcome, there are some policy issues about this that we need to take. For example, if I have a piece of land in this area and I am not using it, can there be a some sort of incentive for me to work? If not that, can that land be taken and combined with other land so I get a rent out of it, but somebody else is tilling it? So in India, that's also a problem. If someone starts tilling your land and after 5 years you may know that the land gaya bhai, change ho gaya now. So these are some of the problems that we face. Even though I am not using my land, it's still there. That is not supposed to be like that. Somebody has to use it. And that's why land degradation is occurring and soil loss is occurring in these areas. Okay, so.
Excuse me, I didn't understand part, like you mentioned just a little while back that letting the land uncultivated for a while will restore its productive capacity, etc.
Okay. That was about shifting cultivation and not in the regular sense, because we don't have that much time to leave the land for such a long time. So in shifting cultivation, what was happening is, because the population was very small then, so a group of people used to move from one place to another looking for fertile lands. So say for example, they demarcated a sort of an area. There they burnt all the trees, everything, so they got fertile lands. 3 or 4 years they cultivated there, and then the quality of land diminished there. And then they moved on to the next piece of land. So while that old land was there, and its turn came after another 15 or 20 years, because there was enough forest or forest land to be utilized for agriculture. But that is not the case now.
Like Jhum cultivation are
Yeah,
very
you-
actively
exactly.
discouraged by government. That is northeast. A lot of
Yeah,
northeast
that
used to
shift-
have Jhum.
Shifting cultivation is zoom on.
Was very actively discouraged in Nagaland and Manipur.
Yeah, it was very actively discouraged, and I think there are results also. And we hope that it keeps getting better and better. And in Northeast, there are also many good systems also that you talk about. Zoom cultivation is one of them, and there is a Zabo system of cultivation. You might have heard about that in Northeast. So that is also a type of system where we enrich the soil by placing different types of farming units at different levels on the hill slope. So we start with trees, and then we have animal sheds, and below there are paddy fields. So all the manures from animal sheds will cut into the paddy fields and they'll get fertilized. So there are some other systems also that we can look on. And Okay, with the advent of conventional agriculture, we are very quickly losing our land, especially by degrading our soils. So another thing he was talking about how much the nutrition of an orange has decreased. So to produce the same amount of food, we have actually doubled the use of fertilizers. What we are using in 70s or 80s. So from if we are using 60 kg to produce nitrogen to produce 60 kg of wheat, today we'll be using 120 kg of nitrogen to produce the same amount of wheat. That is the condition of our soils. So that is deterioration of soil health. Well, it's decreasing day by day. Nutrients we are losing, carbon is going out, and there's a lot of erosion happening, especially in the hills in India. Across the world, there's poor response to fertilizers. So, but we are now in a position when we think about whatever we were doing in our earlier systems of cultivation and what we have knowledge now. So we can combine those. Like we are going to have the best of the both. I mean, India is like placed in a way that we can wear a shirt and a pant, and we can also wear a dhoti and kurta. So it's a very good thing actually that we can do one thing and we can do the other also. We can speak in Hindi, we can also speak in English. So that is what we need to do here. We are also going towards natural farming nowadays. So it's not necessary that we have to completely shift to natural farming, but we have to try what is good for the soils. Maybe some of the things will work, some will not work as we go on. But the question is, can we today bring the two things together? So the ultimate goal will be to sustain the soils. So what do we get from the soils? We mostly talk about food only, agriculture and food. So the complete set of ecosystem services that we get from the soils, food and fiber is one thing. If there are some BTech, then they will also talk about sport. I just added this at the last moment. So water filtration, the drinking water quality is very much dependent upon the soils that we have. The deeper the soils, better will be the quality of drinking water. It gives habitat. Millions and millions of microbes are there in a small pinch of soil. And then nutrient cycling, carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle, sulfur cycle. Everything goes from atmosphere to soil, soil to atmosphere, and cycling. I know when we talk about the cycles, the carbon, we also talk about the carbon. So our goal is to park the carbon for a longer time. It will come and go, but for a longer time it needs to stay in the soil. And then air quality, also because April is already here, and in a few days you'll come to know why soil is important for air quality, because most of the area will be surrounded by dust if you go near the cities, because the soil will be picked up by the winds and be in the air. And that is the reason behind that is because there is no organic matter in the soils. There is nothing to bind the clay particles, which then move into the soil very easily. But if there is a lot of irrigation around the area and there is a lot of clay and organic matter in the soil, this will not happen. And then waste decomposition. Whatever things we throw, except for the polythenes, it's decomposed very easily in the soil. So all these services are provided by the soil. And then some of the drivers of degradation. One thing is, of course, the population pressure, then unplanned urbanization, there's rural poverty, that's very important here. Then we have breakdown of traditional institutions. The community management of land has totally disappeared. For example, if I give you, we were talking a lot about the village ponds recently, and there was a lot of work on restoration of ponds even by us. The thing is, why we can't manage the ponds now the way we did like 30, 40 or 50 years earlier. Every village in this Kandi area, the lower Shivaliks, used to have a village pond where everybody used to come wash their clothes, clean their animals, and sometimes for some ponds even for drinking also, bodies and all this. So why we can't maintain those ponds here? One thing is the soil management. That is very important, because the soil is being eroded from the slopes and going into the pond. It was happening before also, and it's happening now also. But that time we had kacha houses, with mud houses with a roof that need to be thatched every year before the monsoons. So it was a system that was created somehow by the things. The silt that was coming into the ponds was collected just before the monsoon so that it could be thatched on the roofs. So that silt or clay particles provided a cover from the monsoons, and the pond was automatically clean. But now we have brick houses. So the ponds, nobody goes to pick the silt from the ponds. So they have just finished, or they have just disappeared. Another thing was we have a water supply in most of the villages now. So nobody needs gullies and all. They are also gone. So it's all interlinked. Like why certain things are happening now. So some of the causes, you all know: deforestation, soil erosion, mining, unsustainable agricultural practices, inappropriate irrigation systems. That's also very important. You may have a lot of water, you may produce a lot of food, but if you are not managing your irrigation properly, you might have other problems. It may not be erosion, but you may have salinity and other things coming up in the soils. So soil erosion, this is a snap that I specially put because this is somewhere around this area, very near to you, and almost all the soil you can say is eroded here. So this is one of the most serious problem in Jammu and Kashmir. In Jammu division itself, we have nearly 1 million hectare of land that is degraded because of soil erosion. So if you count Ladakh also, we don't do that now. So we have wind erosion problem there. But in Jammu division, we just have mainly the problem is of water erosion. So this has created a large-scale degradation in the entire area. And wherever there are forests, they are still protected and they have a very high organic carbon content. But wherever we are going for cultivation of crops, the degradation is very clear. And I'll show you a little this. So these are the rates around the world, and in India it's 16.4 tons per hectare per year. Okay, so these are the areas that are affected. If you see the browns, these are the areas that are affected by erosion, the maximum. And so this is the extent of nearly 5.5 million in the entire Jammu and Kashmir. Now this is an old data that includes Ladakh also, but in Jammu division it's just 1 million hectares only. Okay, so I told you that the average loss of soils in India is 16.4 tons per hectare in the last slide. Now these two are the small watersheds, micro watersheds in the Shivalik zone. One is the Bajalta area, you may recall that, and the other one is the Surinsar area. So the erosion rates reach as high as more than 80 tons in the Bajalta area, and in the Surinsar watershed it is more than 100 tons. So that's a very, very high rate of soil erosion. If you see the red spots, these are more than 100, sometimes even reaching 200 tons per hectare per year on very, very steep slopes. So that is the amount of soil that is being lost. Now if you see these two maps, if you see the one on the left, that is the Bajalta one. So you see the yellow one where there is very little erosion, that is the area that is under the forest. But the area that is cultivated has very high rate. The colored spots in between are the agricultural fields. So that is the rate of erosion. Again, now, yes, actually, when I was answering him, we discussed some of the things from this. So this is a land degradation cycle sort of that we have made from our experience in this area, where we have tried to relate land degradation with poverty. So we were talking about that people trying to drive local buses or going into factories. So one of the main reason is the investment that we talk about. So poverty, it all starts with the poverty. If you don't have the money to invest, you don't want to do, or you want to spend anything on anything else other than the food and shelter. That is your first preference. So poverty mostly is leading to the lack of technical knowledge, and so there are no soil and water conservation measures in the region. People are generally not following it. They don't want to spend their money. Apart from that, it is the natural factors like very high rain intensity in the monsoon. So the monsoon starts from July and August. That is the time when we cultivate
maize in this region, and that is the time that the maximum soil is exposed because of the tillage. So the initial showers, they are very high intensity. Most of the soil is actually washed during that time, in July and August. Yeah.
Very basic question. When you say the soil is lost, what do you mean? Where is it gone?
It goes into the rivers.
So what are you saying? Your projection is that we are really increasing the, or decreasing the basin of these rivers by putting the solid soil there. That's another problem, right?
Yeah, that is there. But the question is that it was happening all along. I mean, the earth is forming, soils are forming, but the rate that has increased in the recent time is the cause for the problem right now. So, for example, if you talk about the Indo-Gangetic plains, that all soil has come from the mountains only, from the Himalayas, and then it has settled there. The flood plains have become, the same soil has actually moved on to the farmers' fields. When there are floods in Bihar, Assam, what is happening? The water that is coming along with Brahmaputra or Ganga that is coming, and that when the floods happen, all the eroded soil that is coming with them is spread over the farmers' field. So it's not that only all the soil is lost to the sea. A part of it is lost to the sea. Some is spread over other farmers. But the problem is that from the hills it goes away. Farmers of the hills that goes away. But it's not all good that in Indo-Gangetic plains are very, very fertile because soil is coming from that. That soil is carrying a lot of calcium carbonate also with them. And it is also a reason why there are floods in the first place. And it's also a reason why there is waterlogging in many areas of the valley. And because of this waterlogging, we are facing another problem, that is of salinity. Because very high groundwater table is there, and lot of soils and calcium carbonate coming from the hills and all. Either we have sodic type of salinity or we have a lot of calcium and magnesium salts in them. That is again decreasing the productivity. So why I talk about shivalics and irrigated plains, the same thing is happening here also. So shivalics, if you start, lot of erosion, then the soils of Chatra and Araspura, a lot of water logging is there because soil is coming from these areas, distributing over around the area, and calcium carbonate. So we have a lot of sodicity in these areas. Wherever there is, groundwater is very high, and water logging occurs after the monsoon, but 3 to 4 months. So it's a twin problems. If we can control the water and erosion in this area, then we'll be able to control the water logging in other areas also. So that's like a hypothesis. If you can have small dams and all.
The number of landslides in this place, in this terrain, has it increased over the years?
You can say that to an extent there has been an increase, especially a lot of deforestation is occurring. Although if you go by the...
I'm asking for data on linking deforestation with landslides. Do we have that?
No, I don't have that particular data because I'm not working on landslide, but definitely there's a lot of, you can say, there's a direct connection between
right?
deforestation and land degradation. Wherever because their roots actually prevent the soil from moving out, with the water, you can say, or the being eroded or landslide being occurring. So we have worked on erosion, but we have not actually worked on the landslides. But I think there are people in Jammu University from the geology department who are actually working on this part of the problem. So we're talking about that. So all the factors that combine that we promote soil erosion in the region. So there are the monsoons, there is poverty, nobody wants to do anything about that. They want to invest on the land, and that land degradation is occurring. And once the land degradation is occurring, the fertility of soil is going down and the cycle continues because low productivity, it's not enough money from the land. So it's like we are losing the land. The people will find some other things to do, but over a period of time, we are losing most of the land. And the organic carbon, I told you, in this is 0.3 to 0.4% only in this area.
We are losing the organic content in the soil.
Yeah, we are losing organic content in the soil. So when we are making organic carbon in the soil, for example, if I told you that 0.3 to 0.4% is there in the soil, but when the soil is being actually eroded, the sediment will be having around 2% of carbon. The reason being, because when we are measuring the soil, we are measuring for the top 15 centimeter or 6 inches for that. But when we are actually, when the erosion is occurring, it is only occurring for the top 1 to 2 centimeter of the layer. So that is the layer which is very rich in carbon, and when that is washed, you can say a lot of 3 to 6 times of carbon, additional carbon is being lost. So that is called carbon enrichment ratio. The same thing, this is organic carbon content, the watershed where erosion was occurring. So once again, if you see the southern sides, the blue colors, this is the forest area, and then as we move on to the lower levels, where more and more cultivation is occurring, the organic carbon is decreasing. Same is the case in the watershed as well. So let's skip this. So this is about salinity. Now, when we move from shivalics to the plains, this is one of our farms near the border. So you see the red area. This is the exchangeable sodium percentage. These soils are having very high sodium by. This is the low. This is the low-lying area having what we call water stagnation, and this half portion is almost useless. Even though we have tried a lot of things, it may be good for paddy, but not that good for wheat. And we have almost abandoned this part. We are trying to overcome with different amendments, but still, it's very difficult. It's exchangeable sodium percentage. So the more the sodium in the soil, more will be the sodicity content or salinity, what we call, and that results in what we say is deformation of the soil. Its structure is broken. Its ability to hold water, stagnate water actually increases, and it's very difficult to work in such type of soils.
So we recently got an innovator who's from Kashmir, student, and he's also been incubated at Jammu Agro Business Incubation Center, who's working on making manures out of human hair and poultry hair. And one of his products, which is experimented with, is organic carbon rich, very high content of organic carbon manure. One is a liquid component which possibly doesn't have too much of organic carbon, and the solid residue that is left is very rich in organic carbon. And he's also been approved for a grant by Jammu of up to maybe something like 25 lakh rupees or something last year, which has not yet been distributed, or maybe right now it's been distributed. I think would be a good solution really, if you were to go to a commercial scale.
And actually, yes, it could be, any solution can be a good solution if we can make it work practically on the ground. We have a lot of solutions coming up about, but the question is availability about us, because it's a very big area that we need to cover up. How much human hair he can actually find? मेरे तो रहे नहीं. I mean,
human hair can be a problem, but poultry feathers.
Yeah, poultry feathers. Yes, when we talk about poultry manure, all these things come with it. The question is not about that what we can do. The question is how much can we get from it? How much manure we can make? When we talk about organic farming and we want to increase the organic carbon, the question is there is not enough manure in India to go for organic farming. First. So we have to very practical. Farmers will not adopt. I told you that anything that is not economically viable. I, as a scientist from Agriculture University, I know very well that we cannot persuade the farmers to do things like we want them to do it. They will always do what makes an economic sense. In fact, all of us do that. It is not just the farmers. All of us will work.
So then the idea will be to build economic incentives around it, that it becomes economic viable.
There is the system of carbon credits. I think you might have come across that. The carbon credits, like if you can, it's like one credit equivalent to, I'm not sure, but I think around 1 ton of carbon dioxide emitted. So, for example, this is a system that will start in India also. For example, if a farmer conserves 1 ton of carbon in the soil, he gets 1 credit. So that credit is bought by someone who is emitting, for example, an airline industry. Indigo is emitting more carbon than it is allowed to emit. So he needs to buy those carbon credits from the government. What government is doing, it is paying the farmers for storing the carbon in the soil. So that is how carbon.
But then the problem is not there. The problem is not the conservation. Problem is the documentation. The way carbon credit system works, the documentation is beyond the intellectual or it's beyond my capacity. I am a farmer.
It's
I
like a currency, you can say.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
You virtually can't create that documentation. Somebody will ask you for a baseline survey, and somebody will ask you for a.
No, that will be required. I mean, if I'm supposed to give a farmer one credit, then I'll have to go and find out what is the carbon content of his soil, what was it initially, how much he increased in 1 year, and I was talking like even 0.08% is very difficult to increase in a soil in a subtropical condition.
No, I'm just wondering what could be the solutions that farmer could get around, or a system how it could be devised, whether this documentation.
The
Farmer can be
farming-
helped with the documentation.
Farming itself will have to become an industry. Either the cultivation has to be on a community basis. People need to stop ignoring the land, or if they are ignoring, there has to be some system that their land is utilized for example, contract farming we are talking about. So these are because someone who is actually using the land will take care of it. If you are not using जो भी निकल जाए मिल जाए ठीक है, because you are getting your income from other sources. If that attitude goes on, it will not be very long. And then it's not just because, see, if we compare again these two reasons, if we talk about Araspura and all, if we are having basmati rice, which has a lot of export potential, people are actually earning a lot from that. And farmers are relatively well off, and they are focusing on their lands also. They are adopting technologies that we are giving them. But that cannot be said about the farmers who are not getting any income from their lands. So that's a very important thing, how to rehabilitate the lands in this area. We are talking about agroforestry now, things like medicinal plants.
What about the lavender fields near Kandar?
And once again, another important thing is the market. What was that? There was one solution there that we had given, but a lot of farmers actually entered into it, but then there was no market here. So when there is no market, nobody's lavender. If it is getting a market, then it will be good.
No, but why is that? Lavender, I saw lavender farming in France. It's very, very lucrative around in southern France areas around Nice and all that. Very, very rich lavender growing region.
Here also it's there, but I don't think it has gone to their potential. They are trying to highlight the products with their new system that is called One District, One Product. For example, Araspura is dairy, there is honey from certain areas, and like our Honorable Vice Chancellor is saying, there is a honey that is around Ramban, only 50 rupees for a half a kg of bottle, and the same honey is being sold around 1100 in New Delhi and marked from Jammu and Kashmir. So the question is, can we raise the status of the farmers and get them incentives there? If we can do that, we can automatically build upon the soil. He will take care of his soil. I'll take care of something that is earning for me. I take care of my job. I make it sure that I write projects, I do all those things, because that is what is feeding my family. And that's what you see what farmers...
So that can be done by individuals. We need policy changes, right?
We need policy changes, we need community systems, we need a change of mindset, I would say that, in every respect.
The government is the only possibility.
And once again, I'm saying that we have to take the land from people who are not taking it. It's not like grabbing the land, but the thing is, pay them a rent and assure them that their land is not going anywhere. For example, if I lease the land for 5 years, 5 years के बाद आपका हो जाएगा. That way land will be used, and there's a lot of land lying vacant around these areas, especially near urban areas, because people are planning. So we visited a village near Balwal jail. So I asked them what they were doing and what. So he said that this guy is a लखपति, क्योंकि वो तो सारे अपने फील्ड बेच दिए हैं प्लॉट बना के उसने. तो how we are going to stop? I mean, if there is a system, for example, our productive belt, जैसे आरएसपुरा की है, वहाँ पे इतनी कंस्ट्रक्शन क्यों हो रही है? We can construct in this area. can we have a policy plan that stops people from actually building their residences, factories and everything on that part of the area, which is very productive, and actually bring them here. उसके लिए 3-4 dams बनाने पड़ेंगे. We need assured water for that. छोटे-छोटे, not big ones. So it can be done. Question is whether you have the will or a mindset to do. But if we want to, the technology thing is for farmers, that is not going to work at all. It will not work. Adaptation, it's a problem. Adopting and adaptability.
सर जैसे मैंने कई एग्जाम्पल सर मैंने जैसे कोई स्टेट्स में एग्जांपल देखे, जैसे महाराष्ट्र में ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग का ही एक वेरिएंट प्रैक्टिस कराया गया, एक एग्रीकल्चर साइंटिस्ट ने ही तकरीबन 40 लाख फार्मर्स को सिखाया, एंड उन्होंने भी फर्टिलाइज़र वगैरह छोड़ के ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग करी. कुछ टाइम के लिए तो रिजल्ट नहीं आते क्योंकि मिट्टी ख़राब होती है, बट कुछ ही सालों में बहुत अच्छे रिजल्ट आने लगे. उनकी इनकम भी बढ़ गई और क्रॉप प्रोडक्शन ज़्यादा आने लगी जितनी फर्टिलाइजर से आया करती थी. तो आप जैसा कह रहे हैं कि ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग नहीं करेंगे क्योंकि उनको शॉर्ट टर्म में नहीं
मैं
मिलेगी.
तो ऐसा नहीं कह रहा कि ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग, दैट इज द सिचुएशन ना. इफ यू से नहीं करनी, दैट डजंट मीन. द क्वेश्चन इज टू स्ट्राइक ए बैलेंस बिटवीन व्हाट यू डू and what you not do.
सर एक्चुअली सवाल
I am also a head of the Organic Farming Research Center
जी.
at our university apart from soil science. The question is, if we talk about rice producing under organic cultivation, so there is a rice coarse variety is what we call. Its nutrient requirement is 120 kg nitrogen per hectare, and there is other rice that is basmati, which is very expensive. That is 30 kg nitrogen. If we are sowing 30 kg basmati in our organic farm, we get very good results. But if we sow the other variety, then the yield is not up to the mark. The question is, when we are adopting organic farming, it is not that we have to go for cultivation of whatever we like. So we have to adopt in a way. For example, if we take this area, okay, we can go for basmati because basmati is not only taking less nitrogen, we can sell at a premium rate and we can export it also. That's good for farmers. But where there is no basmati and you want to go for a coarse variety, that will not work out. So we need, for that we have solutions for that also, that we need crops which have low nutrient requirements, which are more resistant to pests and diseases, so that we don't have to use chemicals on them. So we have to have a plan for each and everything. It's not, and of course definitely we are not going for 100. Even though I am advocating organic farming myself, I never say that we have to switch over to organic farming. We have to, and you cannot do organic farming alone. First thing is, a single farmer will not get, because he cannot just afford to do that, because certification itself is very, very expensive. And a single plot within a number of plots will not help him out. So it can be done in a entrepreneurship way. Maybe someone can lease the land, or it can be done on a community basis. A large group of people coming together, living in close proximity. It has to be a continuous piece of land, and then they can actually do it. It is not something that we are not going to do it, but it has to be in a way that is helpful to everyone, to the population also, because we have to feed a lot of people also. So, but it's not that it has to be ignored. So we were also once upon a driving a Maruti 800. Now we are growing. So people, organic food is expensive. More and more people now can afford it. So that is how it works. It is not that the same car is for everyone. Everybody has to move, but somebody will go on a bus, the other will go on a Mercedes, right? So India is a very big country. We cannot have the entire area under organic farming, but we need to move to certain areas. And like my former vice chancellor, he was also saying, we used to discuss of a middle path. But that is actually very difficult when we talk about a middle path here, that we reduce the chemical dependence to an extent where our yields are not affected, instead of entirely. But the question is, who will certify that produce? And when there is no certification, there is no money.
Even organic farming, organically produced stuff there's no guarantee it's really organic. Which is the regulatory body in India which is saying it's organic? Anybody says it's organic
No, it's
and charges the earth, you know?
Not everybody can say it's organic, but you never know who's got the real certificate. And then, but there is a APIDA organization, Agriculture Production and Exports Development Authority. So that is the one they are authorizing the different agencies to certify the produce. Then those agencies will certify the produce of the farmers. Earlier there was private entities, but now governments, state governments as well. Like last year, Jammu and Kashmir Organic Certification Agency was also formed, and it has taken a certificate from APIDA, and only that will be certifying all the farmers in
Do
the.
they have labs?
Yeah, they need to have the labs. Without the labs, it will not be accredited, or they will not be given certification to certify the farmers.
I've heard another story.
No, of course, there are a lot of. So if we look behind the curtains, there will be a lot of other stories, and you can never be sure when you are in India about anything off the record.
Pushing for some subsidies for organic farming.
Yeah, there's a lot of subsidies. In fact, government is spending a lot of money in making clusters, organic farming clusters, around 50 hectare pieces of land, multiple farmers. Suchetgarh, there's a basmati cluster. I don't know whether it's still working or not. And there are a lot of clusters coming up. Our KVK is also taking a lot of time. There's a good cluster in Talwada also, which our university is promoting. So almost all the farmers, they are having good yields, good production of vegetables, even paddy and other things, because they are practicing it for a very long time now. So over a period of time, the yields will increase, just like you was talking about earlier. So there are clusters, there are success stories, but not everything, all fields and everything is recommended, because different crops will have different needs.
Professor Sharma, recently the collapse of Sri Lankan economy, at least the newspaper reports, among other things, one of the reasons attributed is that part of their economic collapse is attributable to the fact that they made a wholesale shift to organic farming.
That was actually a crazy idea. I don't know who suggested them. You cannot shift. That's what I'm talking about. You cannot switch over completely to something. Even we are talking about natural farming. So it's not that it is being shoved to other things, but they are asking us to carry out research in this form of agriculture also.
हेलो सर। सर जब मैंने वो सवाल पूछा, आप कह रहे थे कि उस तरीके की वैरायटीज़ हैं जो कम नाइट्रोजन यूज़ कर रही है या फिर हाई यील्डिंग वैरायटीज़ हैं। तो जैसे ये थोड़ा एक मतलब सोचिए कि हम कंप्लीट चीज़ को नहीं देख रहे, या तो हम एक तरफ जो ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन के बाद वैरायटीज़ आई ये वाली, हम उनको भी प्रोड्यूस करना चाह रहे हैं, और साथ ही साथ हम बात कर रहे हैं कि ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग भी करे वो, जिस पे वो उगे ना। तो मतलब उल्टी एक तरफ हम चाह रहे हैं कि वो ऑर्गेनिकली प्रोड्यूस करें, और साथ में हम वो वैरायटीज़ भी चाह रहे हैं जो फर्टिलाइजर पे ही उगेंगी।
आप कौन से ईयर में हो?
सर मैं थर्ड ईयर
में। अभी 3-4 साल और जाओगे, then you'll see that the world is not in black and white.
जी।
ठीक है, there are a lot of shades of grey. Do not demonize green revolution. चाहे उससे soil खराब हुआ है, जो भी हुआ. We are not standing in a line of ration just because of that. आज हम लोग ऐसे आराम से जाके इतनी बड़ी मार्क्स हैं जो मर्जी उठा के खा लेते हैं. That was not something like 40-50 years ago, जहाँ पे राशन में 1-1 किलो चावल लेना पड़ता था. So we are not demonizing that. We need that. And we have to work upon how to reduce the pollution. That is our basic goal. Whether it be organic farming or natural farming, we'll be trying everything, but not completely wiping out what is feeding us. We will be trying everything so that we can have a sustainable system. अभी we were driving petrol cars, अब electric cars आने वाली हैं, चाहे वो electric वहाँ कोल से ही बन रही हो, but you still feel that you are doing good to certain extent, है ना? Scooties भी चलाओ electric. बट वो चाहे कोल हाइडल पावर होगी तो चलो ठीक है, बट वी हैव टू मेक ए वे मूव फॉरवर्ड टू डू करेक्शंस इन आवर लाइफ. ठीक है, वी आर नॉट परफेक्ट पीपल, और जीना भी है. वी कैन नॉट कट ऑफ आवर सप्लाई सिस्टम. अभी आप जाओगे राशन के लिए, हॉस्टल की लाइन में कितना लंबा करवाना पड़ता है ना? यू कांट वेट फॉर दैट ऑल्सो. तो राशन की लाइन में कहाँ लगा? So we cannot look over that, and I don't say कि मैं खुद ही ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग एडवोकेट करता हूँ, because my soils need a lot of organic material उनकी हेल्थ के लिए, but I don't blanketly कि बस यही करना है और कुछ नहीं. There are systems to promote that. clusters we make, we are doing those things also.
Okay, sorry. So, any last question? Actually, we are running out of time. Okay. So, yes, sir. You can continue.
Continue, sir. Because we have discussed a lot of one-way traffic, so this is the solidity. I just wanted to see the solidity. Okay, we have done. Okay. I'll just quickly go through. What I wanted to tell was how we can increase the things we need to follow conservation agriculture, and we talked about a lot of those things earlier also. Okay, this is important. This is about this area only, Shivaji explained. So you can see the carbon content in the agricultural soils and the degraded soils. It's almost the same. And compare it with the forest and horticultural soil. So जैसे आपके degraded soils हैं यहाँ पे वैसे ही agricultural soils उसी level तक पहुँचती हैं. This is the data that we have worked in the mined soils. Even after 25 years, the carbon has not reached the levels that were once there in the soils after mining and restoring them. Okay, let's skip that impact. We have discussed that. Okay, now this was something I wanted to show in the beginning, but मैंने सोचा कि last में बोलेंगे. So influence, the basic thing is who will influence us कि soil का ख्याल रखना है. Okay, this is not no data. मतलब ये कोई डाटा नहीं है जिसके मैंने पाई डायग्राम बना लिए कि there's some data existing. ये just मैंने अपने से ही कर दिया. We as academicians, I told you that we started in 1990 talking about soil quality and soil health. But हमारा जो share है to influence is very very meager, I'd say. And then come societies and NGOs. उनका थोड़ा सा बढ़ा जाता है. And then come politics. Politics में बढ़ता भी है और कम भी होता है. So मोदी जी ने बोला कि soil health card होंगे. A lot of people came to know about soil. It worked very well. Okay. Then there were some haters also. तो 30% increase हुआ होगा तो 25% कम भी हो गया होगा. Balanced approach. कई लोग ऐसे ही नहीं करेंगे कि मुझे ये पसंद नहीं. And then comes the spiritual gurus. जैसे अभी सतगुरु कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. उससे कितने ज़्यादा लोगों को इसकी awareness है. So that orange portion जो वो सारा उसका है. The people who actually connect with the layman, हमारे जैसे academics ने कि इस कमरे में बोला 50 people, वो भी अपने अपने काम में लग जाएंगे जाके थोड़ी देर बाद. ठीक है. तो farmers, people who actually come to is directly connected with spiritual gurus. Okay, these are two people I was talking about. One is an academician, world जो right side पे है वो world food prize winner last year या last to last year. He's an Indian in US. रतन लाल नाम सुना है किसी ने? नहीं सुना होगा ना? और लेफ्ट में कौन है? This man has written hundreds of papers on soil carbon and so many books. पर मेरे अलावा आई थिंक इस रूम में और किसी को नहीं पता होगा और मेरी यूनिवर्सिटी में भी 10-15 सॉइल साइंटिस्टों को ही पता होगा. He is one of and he is an Indian. इसलिए इंडिया में ज़्यादा फेमस है. अगर इंडियन नहीं होता तो वो भी उतना भी नहीं होता. So that's it. Or he started, the man on the left, Sadhguru ji, he started working on safe soil. कितने महीने हो गए? 30 days. है ना? The 30 days, almost entire country knows him, and not only entire country, almost the entire world after his journey. 30. मेरी नीस ने उसका इंटरव्यू लिया था CNN News 18 पे ऑन द बाइक. देखा अपने बाइक पे चलते चलते ही उसने इंटरव्यू लिया. कितने लोगों ने वो देखा? That is just one of the interviews. अब इन दोनों को जोड़ने का काम ठीक है. So he had a talk with him. जितना माइलेज उसको वहाँ से नहीं मिला, it's not about just mileage. He has earned a lot from his profession. The question is, can his message be sent through Sadhguru ji to the people? That is what is मतलब मैं कहना चाहता हूँ. And that he is not the only one he has talked about. Nietzsche, French scientist, and there are many others also. I didn't bother to collect so many photographs. जब मैंने देखा कि बड़ी लंबी लाइन है, इतने से काम चल जाएगा. So there is a 4 per 1000 program in France, जिसके बारे में ये discussion होगी. 4 per 1000 का मतलब है to every year 0.04% कार्बन इंक्रीज करना सॉइल में 4 पर ईयर बोलते हैं. So that is how we need to make people aware. Within 30 days or 1 month, more people know about soil than what Ratan Lal did in his entire life. Maybe more than 30 years he has spent on working on soil carbon and sustainability. But academics is ज़्यादा कुछ. So thank you very much.
So after that knowledgeable and fulfilling speech of by Dr. I would like to call upon someone that needs no introduction to us, Dr. Amita Shoja, to cover his speech.
I have been asked to give vote of thanks, and I know vote of thanks are usually considered when you are ready to go and somebody comes and says, I'll speak for another 4-5 minutes. So I'll do that. I'll take the liberty. First of all, thank you, Dr. Vikas, for being here at IIT Jammu and being part of this community. Your talk has actually given us a lot of ideas how to talk about nature, soil, and how to take that as an important aspect of our life. Before I formally thank everyone, I would just like to tell a small story. There was some 10-15 years back, there was a group called Taru Mitra. It was a students' organization, and I was part of it, and we used to go around different schools, talk to students. And once I went to Mumbai and I said that you have to save environment, you have to do this, you have to do that. One small 6th class student came to me and he said, sir, I live in an apartment. How can I save a tree? I have never seen a big tree growing in my campus, so how can I save it? That was a very important question that you keep telling people, okay, I have no land anywhere. I have no trees, no bagicha, nothing. So how to do it? So one story that inspired me always was this. There was a flood and there was a guy who always believed in God. हम लोग सबको विश्वास करते हैं. And when there was a flood, this guy said that I'm not going to run away from my community. God will come and save me. So he lived there happily. So water rose a little bit. So all the village people, they came and they said, bhago, 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 pani aa raha hai. He said, no, I'm not going. I'm doing my, mala japna. God will come and save me. Everyone left, but he continued there. After some time, water rose a little bit more. So he went on the first floor. So one now came, one boat. So there were some people who said, "Arey tum yahan atak gaye ho, fas gaye ho. Let me save you." He said, no, don't save me. I am going to be saved by my God. Okay, so that boat also left. Water rose a little more, and he went up to the top of his building. And there was a helicopter who came and said, "Arey, chalo bachao isko." He said, no, I don't want to be saved. God will save me. Okay. सब कोई चले गए. He was alone. थोड़ी देर में पानी बढ़ना शुरू हुआ. यहाँ आया, यहाँ आया, यहाँ आया. The fellow died. Then he went to God. God को जाकर के, क्या आदमी है यार, इतने दिन इंतजार किया, आए नहीं बचाने के लिए. God said, I came thrice. One in the form of the community, then on the boat, and then on the helicopter. The point of this story is that we have to do something. If at all something has to be done about this nature, environment and pollution, all of this relates to us. We can't wait for the government, we can't wait for Sadhguru or academicians, as you said. We all have to get inspired. But the problem remains same. What do we do? There are small things. Nature Club can do a lot of stuff. We have a lot of paper that we waste. Can we have some kind of mechanism where one-sided paper can be reused in library, in classrooms? One school children's child said that I'm not going to use ball pen anymore. Ball pen includes plastic. I will only use ink pen. If you don't have an ink pen, come to my office, I'll give you one. That saves. The point is that we have to find in our life small things that we can do to save our environment. One small child, even in one of the 5th class, said that किसी के घर में आप जाते हैं, आप पानी का बोतल देते हैं उसको, पानी का गिलास पूरा भरा हुआ होता है, बेचारा शर्म के मारे आधा गिलास पानी पीता है, छोड़ देता है. Can we give them half glass water? I don't know. But we have to find our new ways to save environment, because we have to continue, because as they said, that the earth we are not, we are inheriting to give it back to the next generation. With this thought, I would like to say thanks to all the organizers who took time, organized it very well, and special thanks to Professor Vikas. You came, and keep coming to IIT Jammu and keep inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I thank everyone for attending this event. We can now move out for tea.
मोमेंटोस मिलते हैं जो सारे डस्टबिन में जाते हैं. This is something that will be kept. Okay. So, at least we can make first of all, ये फोटो आ रहा है?
वो यहाँ से करते हैं.
Okay.
प्रोफेसर योगेश, डॉक्टर विकास जाके इसका सवाल का कंटेंट चेक करने वाले हैं, फिर मैं और मैंने आपकी सवाल शुरू कर. पूरा